Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back here with week 2 of Super Draft Bros. Catch these iron hands. We're wearing our Unreal hoodie. We're hoping for an Unreal game. Let's check out the matchup. All right, so you can see our team right here on the left. We got Lottie, Clodsire, Buzzwole, Blacephalon, Primarina, Kilowattrel, Brute Bonnet, Claydol, Greedent, and Avalugg Hisui. Chad and I have been talking about some potential trades, so keep an eye out for those. Like to shake up the team every once in a while. And then our opponent here, the Alolan Boys, they got the Executor Alola, actually an underrated animal in Draft League. They are rocking the Ceruledge, Hydreigon, Dondozo, Celebi, Sandy Shocks, Sylveon, Aerodactyl, Yanmega, Reverum, and Chestnut. So just off first glance, obviously Ceruledge is an absolute beast, a threat. You always have to have a guaranteed answer for that thing. Otherwise, it gets its weak armor, it gets an SD, and you're toast. Hydreigon, also another threat. Scarf, whether it's Specs, whether it's even DD. I've personally ran, especially defensive support sets with rocks, U-turn, roost. That thing just gets so many different, options for whatever role you want it to fit week to week. Dondozo obviously is an absolutely massive physically defensive wall. Celebi is so, versatile with its 100 stats across the board. It's another rocker, U-turner. Actually, it is a little bit tough for us to handle. Celebi itself, if you look at it, if it just runs Psychic, Giga Drain, Recover, and U-turn, there's not a lot on our team that likes to handle that. So we were definitely worried about that in prep. Sandy Shocks is always a threat. Electric ground coverage is amazing. It gets rocks and spikes. It gets dual screens. It gets Thunder Wave. And of course it can run booster energy and boost the speed, boost the special attack, depending on how you want to run it week to week. Sylveon, obviously, especially defensive wall. It can even handle physical offense with its great typing, wish passing, wish protecting, even Specs Hyper Voice is insane. Aerodactyl, really strong, really fast. If you look at our team, it's actually faster than anything on our team that isn't scarfed. Yanmega, it could be speed boosting, it could be tinted lens. Regardless, you need to make sure you have a good, especially defensive wall that isn't just relying on its typing to handle that thing. Reverum, is a great. It's a good pivot. It's good at handling fairies. It can set up T-spikes if the opponent doesn't have a grounded poison type. And it does hit pretty hard. It does get shift gear. It's still kind of slow. But it's a pretty solid mon overall, even though it's only 2 points here. And then their Terra Pokemon is Chestnut, which is definitely a bit scary. Getting rid of that 4 times weakness to flying is very nice. So let's check out the team that we brought this week. I'm going to start off here looking at Clodsire just to kind of show you guys our ideas for this week. So they have very limited hazard removal on their team. They have Aerodactyl, Yanmega, and I think Hydreigon does get Defog. But none of those options really want to run Defog. They'd rather have an offensive move. So our idea here was to, get the hazards up, force them to switch around, wear down their team, and then from there we have a couple sweepers that, depending on what's available, we can just get through their team. Or we could just wear it down by switching back and forth and just win the game without having any sweep. So one key thing here is the toxic spikes. Obviously Reverum can absorb those toxic spikes, but it really doesn't want to come in against a Clodsire that can just Earthquake and basically knock that thing out even through Filter. So we were thinking Toxic Spikes were amazing for Dondozo, for Sylveon, for their Sandy Shocks. Anything that wants to switch in repeatedly and wants to stay in and maybe do a little bit extra, like especially Sylveon, it has a really hard time wish passing if it needs to keep itself healthy after getting worn down so much from either if it's poison if we only get one layer or toxic if we get 2 layers. So then obviously we want our Clodsire to stay healthy because it is max Spit F. It is trying to take as many of those specially attacking hits as it possibly can. This is kind of our best like initial switch in. One of our better initial switch-ins to Celebi, depending on what we have out, because Earth Power and Psychic aren't doing too much since we have so much bulk. And then Poison Jab, Earthquake are great coverage for their whole team except for Aerodactyl, which can actually take both of those stab moves. But if it's switching in, it doesn't necessarily want poison, like a poison from Poison Jab, which will definitely wear it down over time. That thing wants to be able to, be dishing out hits. And if we do get a poison, we get a little bit of progress on that thing. So the other side of that hazard coin is our Stealth Rock Avalugg. And, Stealth Rocks are such a, sometimes kind of boring, but if you want to get to that next level, hazards and hazard removal are some of the more important things that you can focus on, not only in your draft, but also in your building. Sometimes even if you have the hardest hitting moves, it's not gonna win you the battle unless you get that little bit of 12% chip or even 8% chip, or in some cases 25-50% chip. It's really, really important. And as you'll see here, we don't bring that hazard removal side, which we definitely could have done that instead of maybe another move here on Avalugg. But since we have recovery on so many of our different Pokemon, we're able to outlast those hazards. But we will waste turns more if we were able to just deal with those hazards before. Earthquake, Ice Fang, just are great coverage for their whole team once again. And we were running some calcs and noticed that we don't actually need defensive investment in this Avalugg to be able to handle their strong offensive threats. Their Cerulege, since we're running no item, it can't Swords Dance and Poltergeist us. Their strongest move in that case would be a close combat, which is doing about 40% at +2. We're running Terra Water this week, so that way their Bitter Blade is doing like 12% at +2. And then we're Oko or 2-Koing them with Earthquake, even if they go for a bulk up. Ice Fang is great for their Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl doesn't do too much to us, even if it's Dragon Dancing or if it's Choice Banded or if it's, Life Orb, 3 attacks with Roost. We can switch in on that thing every time. The key with Avalugg every week is going to be getting that Terra off. Obviously our opponents are going to try to deny us from just leading this thing and just getting our Terra off immediately. So our key every week is going to be, how are we going to be able to get in Avalugg for free and get that Terra off so that it's a whole lot safer going forward. And the other thing is getting that thing in before hazards are up is really important, because we'd rather use, leftovers, pretty much just leftovers on that thing, other than heavy duty boots, which once you've Terra'd is not as important. But obviously here we're running no item. So the next thing, obviously we're going to need to pivot around here. We're going to want switch-ins. Primarina with the Assault Vest is a great switch-in for so many things. It absolutely shuts down any Specs, any Scarf, Hydreigon. We can flip turn out. Moonblast hits our team really hard. But one of the key things for this Primarina is it actually shuts down the Dondozo. We're not worried about that thing at all because max special attack energy ball is a guaranteed 2-hit KO on max Fizdef Dondozo. And even if that thing is setting up with curses, it's not going to be able to break through us. And if it starts to get out of, if we start to get low with Primarina, we can always Draining Kiss and get a ton of health back. So that is what the point of this Primarina is. Pivoting around, soaking up hits, getting Draining Kisses off, getting some health back, and of course shutting down that Dondozo. Next we got Kilowattrel. This is just another pivot here. I was really, really worried about Celebi. So I gave this thing a lot of special bulk to be able to take 2 hits from Celebi, U-turn, Air Slash, whatever we need to do. This is basically just switch in, take a hit, U-turn out. Or switch in, take a hit, Roost, and then U-turn out. Because this thing is faster than basically everything on their team except for the Aerodactyl, of course. And they don't really want to switch into flying and electric type moves outside of Sandy Shocks. But of course, Sandy Shocks can only really power gem us. So we're handling its moves, pretty decently. Next up, we got another sweeper here, or it could even be just something that just breaks through a wall that they have. If we're having trouble with something, we can just send this thing out off a pivot, off a sack, something like that, and just click Specs Overheat. Obviously, Dondozo isn't going to be able to switch into Specs Overheat because if it is unaware, our stat drop isn't brought into effect. So that, 130? Yeah, 130 base power overheat is going to be hitting over and over and over. They're not going to be able to rest off that damage. And I'm pretty sure the overheat does 2-hit KO a regular Dondozo, even through the resist. So these hits are just going to be really strong. Obviously, Chestnut does have an ability to resist Shadow Ball with Bulletproof. But as long as it's not a resistant type to Flamethrower, we're still doing about 80%, I believe. And if they are like a specially defensive Hydreigon, or if they're like Assault Vest Hydreigon or something like that, we can get some progress with Knockoff, and then our later hits are going to do a whole lot more after it loses either Leftovers Recovery or the Assault Vest, which is boosting its special defense. As you can see here, we have a bit of a weird stat distribution here. We're only running with 20 special attack EVs. And as you can see here with Beast Boost, it boosts your highest stat. And that is going to be our speed just by the smallest of margins. I know that sometimes there are spreads with Beast Boost where they'll run the exact same stat, but it's gonna raise the stat that's the highest on this bar. So since special attack is listed higher than speed, special attack would still be boosted. So that you'll see something like that with Stakataka, since it has to lower its defense so much to be able to get that attack beast boost. You'll make attack and defense the exact same, but since attack is higher, you get that attack boost. Just something to keep in mind for the future. Maybe we want max speed and we want some bulk, but we still want the special attack boost. So we could maybe run exactly the same. We'll see in the future. And then our last Pokemon, the sweeper of the team, is going to be our Latias. We have a super cool Calm Mind Weakness Policy stored power set. And this kind of has the intention of bringing in a Sylveon to hyper voice us and activate that weakness policy, get healthy, and then sweep the team. After one Calm Mind boost, a hyper voice is doing about 40%. After two, it's starting to do about 30%. So we're going to be able to take that hit super easily, get back up to full with Roost, and then they'll do about 30%, so it'd be about 70%. And then a Scarf Hydreigon Draco is not going to revenge us. A Shadow Sneak from Ceruledge with all this bulk we have is not going to revenge us. And then we outspeed pretty much everything else except for Aerodactyl, and a Life Orb Crunch is not going to kill us from 70. Or, well, it has a chance, depending on their set, a Crunch could kill us, but obviously we will get to that situation if that comes up. Stored Power, Dragon Pulse are the two moves that hit their team. Obviously, we would love to just run Stored Power and run Agility instead, so we don't have to worry about Scarfers. But since that Hydreigon is there, we're going to need to run those two just to be safe. So with the team out of the way, let's get into the battle itself. So as you can see, they did bring the Dondozo, Hydreigon, I guess, Sylveon, Sandy Shocks, Aerodactyl, and their Terra Captain Chestnut. The only thing we were really surprised there is the Aerodactyl. We didn't prep as much for it. Obviously, we have our blanket check in Avalugg, but we didn't have as much preparation for that thing. We are obviously worried about the Celebi coming, and we were definitely worried about the Ceruledge. But only having the Ceruledge and only having the Aerodactyl and not both that and the Ceruledge makes Avalugg's job a whole lot easier because it has less to worry about. Once Aerodactyl is dead, Avalugg doesn't have to worry as much. It doesn't have as much pressure anymore. So going into this, we kind of expected them to lead with either Sandy Shocks, the Chestnut to get their Terra off immediately, or the Hydreigon. Deep down, we were really hoping that they would lead with something that Avalugg could get its Terra off in front of safely, and we just kind of went for it. We knew that getting that early Terra off was really key for the Aerodactyl down the line. It was really important for the Chestnut down the line, because even though Chestnut, gains even though Wood Hammer and Grass moves are still super effective against water, any fighting moves like Body Press or something like that are not going to be as worrisome once we've Terra watered. So we did go for that. Unfortunately, they do lead off with the Sandy Shocks. Obviously, it's a great lead to guarantee hazards, get Volt Switches off, even Paralysis is off. So we are going to switch in here to Kilowattrel. We have our Volt Absorb, so if they try to Volt Switch, if they try to Earth Power to take out our Avalugg, we're going to be safe. Unfortunately, we do give up Stealth Rocks here. But in this case, they have the speed, so they are going to outspeed us. They're going to do a good chip, but we're going to be able to U-turn and go into something that's a better answer here. Obviously, we could have switched in Clodsire immediately, but if they did go for that Earth Power, it would have been a little bit close. Bringing this Clodsire in safely so that it's a little bit more healthy makes our later turns a lot easier here. So we're going to be able to take two Earth Powers here if we want to. We threaten it with Earthquake, so they might be a little bit scared here. But forcing this thing out is really important because that speed boost goes away since they already used their booster energy. And that makes Blacephalon faster, that makes Kilowattrel faster, and especially that makes Latias faster. So this thing can't come in later and get a fast paralysis off on us and stop our sweep. So that's our number one, goal here, is to make sure this thing switches out because it's a whole lot more manageable when it doesn't have that speed boost. That's exactly what this thing does. Is it's going to switch out into the Aerodactyl. As we're going to just click Earthquake, playing it safe, I believe. Oh, no, actually, we were very ballsy here and decided to go for the Toxic Spikes. I think I saw the calc and I was like, we don't get 2 KO'd by Earth Power. We can just go for the Toxic Spikes. We can recover up later, or recover up after, and getting these Toxic Spikes out now is very important because of the Dondozo, because of the Sylveon, because of the Chestnut. Obviously, this Clodsire can't do too much to the Aerodactyl, so we get this opportunity to bring in our Avalugg. I did the calcs. even if they go for a raw Life Orb's Adamant Stone Edge into Terra, Water, plus another one, somehow we survive from this position. So I was like, this is totally safe. We can, we can bring this thing in. We can Terra for free. We can recover back up to full. And they show that they're actually Dragon Dance. So this is actually perfect for us. Obviously we're going to take a little bit more damage if they attack, but we don't take that damage when we're weak to the rock move. So that's exactly what we do. We get our Terra off, and I believe we just go for an Ice Fang. That's exactly right. We get a little bit of damage gauge off on the Dondozo, but most importantly, we force that Aerodactyl out and kind of waste one of its sweeping opportunities. Here, obviously, the Dondozo doesn't threaten Avalugg very much, so we can get our rocks up, we can recover back up to full, and then we can switch out into our Answer Primarina, which we know 2-hit KOs this thing. And every turn this thing wastes, it's getting chipped down 12%, 12%, 12%. And then it's going to be forced to either rest or just die. So here we go. We get our rocks up here. They go for a liquidation, and it does 8%. Which, if we did have leftovers, that would have done 0 damage. We do get our recover back up, and they start to curse up, knowing that they're not doing anything to us. We can switch in here to our Primarina on a potential rest. They're just about 50%. So yes, they do go for rest. They have Chesto Berry, but when this thing switches back in, it's going to be paralyzed or poisoned again, because the toxic spikes do it every single time you come in. We go for an energy ball to do our 50%. We do get a crit, which does 93%. I don't think that crit matters too much. Obviously, they could save this thing and go to something else. Not that anything really wants to switch into a energy ball / Moonblast, which we probably would have gone for Moonblast on the next one to try to hit something trying to come in, whether it's the Sylveon or the Chestnut. But obviously this sucks. They take more damage than they would have. A liquidation does about 26%, which we can of course recover off with Draining Kiss here. We get our 7% back, which kind of negates some of the Stealth Rock's damage on the next switch in. So they bring in their Chestnut here. We're not entirely sure what this thing is going to do. Here we do Flip Turn to try to get some momentum. I think that was a bit of a misplay here, because if the Chestnut does go for like a Wood Hammer or an offensive move and it outspeeds us, then that puts us in a really bad position against that Hydreigon, because this Primarina absolutely walls Hydreigon, and our next best bet is the Clodsire, which obviously could get flinched down a little bit easier than Primarina, and doesn't do as much damage against the Hydreigon than Primarina, who just one-shots that thing with Draining Kiss. But luckily we don't get punished for it. They do Terra Poison, which means next time they come in, they're going to absorb the Toxic Spikes. They go for the Leech Seed. They get absolutely nothing out of that turn because we Flip Turn away, and we get rid of the Leech Seed. And since they are leftovers, even though they're Poison type, they're still taking that poison damage, because they got poisoned before they turned into that poison type. But we bring this opportunity to just get in Kilowattrel, get that thing back up to essentially full, 93% with a Roost, and then we can pivot around from there. They go into the Sylveon. Obviously, it's going to take any of Kilowattrel's hits. If we just U-turn there, that might have put us in an even better position, because I don't think the Kilowattrel health matters too much. We're going to be able to take any hits that Chestnut is dealing out, so we can always switch in on that and U-turn out. Basically, you don't want to give your opponent any free turns, and getting this Roost off, while it does keep Kilowattrel healthy, it gives them a free turn here, where they actually go for the Heal Bell here. And the Heal Bell is really nice for them, because it makes it so that this chestnut isn't poisoned anymore. And the next time it comes in, it absorbs those toxic spikes. So that basically eliminates toxic spikes from the game, which is a great play by them. But we definitely had those toxic spikes for the Dondozo, and since that thing is gone already, the usefulness of them is down just a little bit. So here we go for the U-turn, do a little bit of chip damage. We bring in Clodsire, which can take any hit from a Sylveon, and they get that heal bell off. So now they're going to switch out into the Aerodactyl, and we breathe a slight sigh of relief here because we notice that this thing is not heavy-duty boots. And that means that the amount of switch-ins that they're going to have with this thing is very, very limited, unless, of course, they have Roost. But even then, that's a wasted turn where we get to go free into Avalugg and hit a Ice Fang, which is not resisted by any of their team anymore. So that's going to be great. They go into Aerodactyl, and we click Earthquake. The reason we click Earthquake there instead of a Poison Jab is because we're trying to deny Chestnut from coming in and getting those toxic spikes off for free. And we know that if Aerodactyl comes in, we have an easy switch into our Avalugg, and we can get free damage. We can recover back up to full. We're not worried about what that thing does at all. So that's exactly what we do. We go straight into Avalugg. They go for the Earthquake here, and they're doing 14%. So they would have to be +3 or +4 to be able to 2-hit KO us with Earthquake. So we're not super worried about that thing right now. And then they go into their Chestnut, and once again, we're trying to keep them from getting these toxic spikes off for free. Here they get the toxic spikes off, but we click Earthquake, and we do a nice 57% to that thing. Obviously, it does get a little bit of leftovers recovery back, but this thing is super weak. And if that 13% is a liar, and they come back in on spikes, or on rocks, and die, this thing is out of the equation completely. So that is a pretty good trade for us after getting those toxic spikes off on that switch, on that predicted switch. That thing is going to switch out, and we're just going to Earthquake again. The reason we Earthquake again is because we really don't want that thing to be Synthesis and start recovering back up. And then that predicted Earthquake where we did so much damage just, is nullified basically. If we click Ice Fang, either miss, or if we click Ice Fang and do, I think it probably does about 30%. It's just not, it's not what we want to see when we can have this thing come in and either die, or come in at 1% and die to literally any move in the game. So we just, we're just gonna eliminate that thing from the game. They come in on an Earthquake. They're immune. We don't want to waste this Avalugg, so we go into the Clodsire on a U-turn. We are not unaware on this Clodsire because if they click Draco, then it would be the same power every single time. I'm meant to be Water Absorb for the Dondozo, but this thing is Poison Point. So there is a chance that U-turn could have poisoned them, which would have been really funny. Obviously it didn't happen, but that's okay. The reason we go into Clodsire instead of Primarina is because Primarina takes a whole lot more from Brox. It takes damage from the U-turn. They can go into Sandy Shocks and force us out immediately. And we just are wasting health on that thing. Clodsire is a whole lot less useful to us in this game. And since it has the Black Sludge, it's going to be recovering passively anyway. So we're more than willing to let Clodsire go down if we need to and bring something else in, rather than sacking so much HP on Primarina, which doesn't have as much recovery as a Clodsire does. So they do bring in their Sandy Shocks. They're going to get good damage on us with Earthquake, and then they're going to get another unfortunate crit here. As you can see, we do just take this thing out. Clodsire is a animal, by the way. Like, I know it's a crit, but the fact that it's doing 82% as a defensive Pokemon with no attack investment is pretty crazy. Obviously, this sucks, but you know, if we wanted to keep Clodsire, we could just switch out into you know, Kilowattrel, which isn't super useful anymore in this game. We're at basically max HP. This thing isn't faster than us anymore. We can air slash a couple times. If it doesn't kill, then that's fine. And then we could either go into Blacephalon as a Revenger, we could go into Latias as a Revenger, and just click Dragon Pulse and not really reveal any of our set. But, you know, we get the crit. It's nice. It saves some HP on Clodsire. It saves some predictions here and there. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that this crit is kind of like a game sealer at all. This Sandy Shocks wasn't doing like the most work for them at this point in the game. At this point in the game, their key way to victory is honestly the Aerodactyl. If they can chip down our Avalugg enough, Aerodactyl is pretty much their only way of winning this game at this point. Other than that, maybe if they happen to be Calm Mind Sylveon, but since they revealed Heal Bell, there's no way they can fit Calm Mind, Hyper Voice, Psyshock, and then like Wish Protector, any sort of recovery there. So we're pretty safe on that front. So it dies, we get back up to about 40%. They bring in their Chestnut. As you can see, Showdown did lie. Make sure to not trust the percentages when you're playing. Check the actual HP number divided by you know, whatever your max health is, and then see what that calculates to, because sometimes it'll show you have more HP because it's rounding up. It's not going to say 12.873%, right? So you want to check the actual physical HP number before you switch in, because obviously if this thing lived on 1 HP, it could, you know, Leech Seed Synthesis or whatever, but it ends up being a wasted sack. Because if they know this thing dies on switch into hazards, they can bring in something else, like Aerodactyl, hit a move, switch into Chestnut, sack that thing off, and then bring something else in for free. Now, like, they're bringing it in after I already killed something, and then it's just dying, and it's a waste of resources, really, because they didn't do that extra little bit of checking to see how much HP it actually had. So here they go into Aerodactyl. They're taking another 25%. Obviously, we're just going to go into our Avalugg. We're getting a little bit chipped down from these rocks here, and they're just going to Dragon Dance up. Here, we're going to prioritize our health on Avalugg. If they go for a move here, and then we heal up, then we're looking golden. If they go for another Dragon Dance and we heal up, then they have to get very, very lucky with us, like, missing Ice Fang, like, I think twice or something like that. But obviously after one Dragon Dance, this Aerodactyl is being able to handle our whole team anyway. So it doesn't matter how many Dragon Dances it has, as long as Avalugg can beat it 1v1, then we're totally fine. So we go for a recover, we get back up to full. They go for another Dragon Dance instead of an attack. They go for a Rock Blast. I believe they reveal to be loaded dice because they hit 5 times. They do get 1 crit, which is, you know, totally fine. We live, and we get our Ice Fang off, and we get the 50% off that we needed. They bring in Hydreigon. We don't need Avalugg anymore, so we can just sack that thing off. It's not going to be super useful against Sylveon and Hydreigon left. We get in our Primarina. We can just Draining Kiss here. And then here I got a little bit greedy because obviously Primarina can just, you know, sit in front of this thing. but I wanted to be aggressive here. So we go for a flip turn. We go into our Latias. If they want to be passive and protect, they can do that, and we get a Calm Mind, and then we get 2 Calm Minds before we get our weakness policy. They just end up going for a Hyper Voice, doing about 45%. We get our weakness policy off, and then we can do that kind of progression that I said we were going to do earlier, where we just roost until we get up to a certain amount of HP. We get another Calm Mind off, roost back up to another certain amount of HP, and then that Scarf Hydreigon is not going to be able to revenge us with the Draco Meteor. So we'll switch back to normal for this. They're doing about 30% with Hyper Voices after 2 Calm Minds. We get to about 58%. I said that's good enough. We don't want to get crit there. Sword Power just knocks that thing out straight away. And then here's the crit. But at this point, we're totally fine because Primarina can take as many Dark Pulses as it really needs to, and then one-shots with Draining Kiss to seal the game. That's the game. We are up to 2-0 plus 9 now, which is at the top of the leaderboard here. And Primarina is also in the top 10 for kill leaders. So it's starting to be a pretty good season for us now. Next week we are going to be taking on Hoopa Infinite, so keep an eye out for that. And other than that, we'll see you guys in the next week.